Well, duh. That's kind of how football works. Hi guys, and welcome back to another week of TFW, the show that puts all of your opinions out there for the world to see. Now, I've got my laptop with me and we are gonna go ahead and start. This week, I asked all of you in the community tab on YouTube last night for all of your unpopular or maybe popular opinions on everything in the footballing world. The first one is a big one. It comes from Ed Woodward. It's the name of the YouTube account, probably not the Manchester United executive, who said, unpopular opinion, when fit, Pogba starts for every team in the world. I'm actually going to agree. I know people give Pogba so much shit, but fully fit Paul Pogba, in good form, with his ability and everything that he could do, which we've seen like with France, especially in the Euros and the World Cup as well, you'd struggle to find a midfielder who can do it all like he can. You'd struggle to find a midfielder that could do absolutely everything that Paul Pogba could do. There are players who could do individual things better than he can. Just off the top of my head, N'Golo Kante's fitter than Pogba running box to box. Kevin De Bruyne is a better passer than Paul Pogba. But when you mix everything together, I'm struggling to think of someone who could do everything all round that he can. It is just a shame that he's injured a lot and that, well, questionable over his attitude. No one actually knows whether that's true. That's just what the media seem to do. Next up, Counts to 50,000. Great YouTube name. Says, unpopular, stats can't be relied on to see how good a player was. Some great players seem to consistently put up good numbers for their reputation. Yeah, this stats debate is going to rumble on, probably has in football forever. There's always people talk about stat padding, or there's so many different ways of looking at something now to how it was years ago. I mean, the perfect example we just talked about is the Champions League. Real Madrid have 13 Champions League titles, right? And it's incredibly difficult to win the Champions League title these days. Back when they won their first 5, which was 5 in a row, I believe, the first 5 European titles there ever were, back in the late 50s, early 60s, I believe, they had like 6 games to play to get to the final, I believe, maybe. So yeah, they're playing like double the amount of games just to get to the final. The Champions League this season, or I mean the last few years since it's reformatting in whenever it was, 2001 or something, is 13 games including the final. So 6 group games and then 3 rounds of a 2-legged tie and then the final. So it's 13 games. Yeah, back in the 60s, Real Madrid had less competition, less games to play, and they probably, because of the size of the club they were, had far better players. In fact, they did have far better players than the 1 or 2 others who were constantly appearing. The same thing goes for like the European Championships, right, that Portugal are current holders of. It's been expanded again since Portugal won it. Yeah, the first one had 4 teams. The first one, when you passed the qualifiers, the final tournament, you started in the semi-final. So yeah, of course it's much easier. With stat padding as well, I mean, the one that comes to mind is Harry Kane, and people say, oh, he won the Golden Boot at the World Cup, but he just scored against these teams. Just did that. I guess you kind of got to do it against every team. If you're really willing to break someone's stats down or break a team's stats down, there is so much more that goes into it, but you have to kind of look at them as well. They are a pretty good indicator, especially some of the bigger numbers. Like if someone scored, I don't know, 300 goals, you can't be like, yeah, but they were a bit lucky with penalties and tap-ins. You can be lucky once or twice. You cannot be lucky 300 times. Whoever that applies to in your footballing mind. And talking about this, Dank Fett with the next one that said, Alisson is a tad bit overrated. He's still good, but people are comparing him to the likes of Casillas and Buffon. First off, when you compare to a legend, it's always key to remember that they were in great teams, and also it's the longevity that makes them great. Like, not every player can be afforded the luxury of being number 1. Now, obviously, you're number 1 for a reason. Like if Casillas and Buffon are number 1 for as long as they were, both Juventus and Real Madrid, because they were quality and the club didn't feel the need to bring in someone better, or they couldn't find anyone better because they had the best in the world. It's not always the same with other players. Goalkeeper's slightly different. But Alisson's a tab overrated, he's still good. This ties in with the next one from Gabriel Lee, who said, unpopular opinion, if Alisson didn't have Van Dijk playing in front of him, he wouldn't be that good like he is now. That's what I'm talking about stats. You could say that Alisson is way off top saves in the Premier League this season, the top number of saves. But then he's got a good defence in front of him. Last season, he won 3 Golden Gloves, but then was that actually down to Van Dijk? Van Dijk, for example, maybe is as some people were saying, a bit worried about being dribbling past after this incredible record, so didn't go into as many tackles and didn't win as many tackles. Just because his stats low doesn't necessarily make him a bad defender. I mean, the top saves in the Premier League, not quite sure who it is. I know that Lucas Fabianski was up there, right? And West Ham are terrible. Their defence is so bad, it means Fabianski has so many shots to face that chances are he's going to be saving more. So yeah, going back to the original bit about stats, it is very, very difficult to literally pinpoint how good someone is. You could say, oh, Alisson made that save in the Champions League against Napoli, when was it, like 2 years ago, or last season when they won it. Yeah, that's a good save, and he's a great goalkeeper. But you've got to look about the whole picture. Van der Sar has the record, I believe, for Manchester United for most clean sheets in a row, or longest time in the Premier League without conceding, and he was phenomenal, but the shots he faced during that period were so low. Like, no one was even getting past Evra, Ferdinand, Vidic, and it may have been Neville at the time, or Raphael or someone. No one was getting past the defenders to even shoot at Van der Sar. So no wonder he had such a good record, and I think the same thing does go for Alisson. Not saying he's a bad keeper, he's brilliant, but you do have to take into account the fact that he's playing behind a brilliant defence. Right, next up, Days Drift. Christian Pulisic is a generational talent in his opinion. Ooh, generational talent, that's always tied down to like American sports. I don't know how much you guys watch. I don't watch a huge amount, but in the NFL and the NBA, they're always talking about generational talents. Pulisic may be generational for the US national team, for sure. Not in European football. He's a quality player. Is he worth 60 million? Yeah, probably will turn out to be worth 60 million. I think he's only 20 or 21 at the moment. Certainly not generational. Generational talents, if I had to pick one, I'd say Mbappe. Like in a league of his own, in the class of his own. Certainly he's doing it for a few more years. Haaland's probably verging on that if he continues this streak. But yeah, Pulisic, not a generational talent. Isham Mizra said, Raul Jimenez only scores so many goals because the season is geared towards him getting all the chances. Yeah, that's kind of how football works. If you have a good guy, if you have a guy who's good at scoring, you give him all the chances because he can score. This is something actually, we were talking about Harry Kane earlier. I've seen so many people say, oh, Kane only scores tap-ins. And Aubameyang, people getting on at Aubameyang. Oh, he only scores penalties or tap-ins. And Ronaldo, just tapping it in. Well, duh. If your striker is the guy that you're working towards to get the goals. Like, why would Wolves say, oh, you know what, Raul, you've had too many chances, so this time, instead of crossing it in the box, we're going to give it to the left-back to shoot from 50 yards. No. If you're a striker and if your team is able to get the ball that close to the goal that all the striker has to do is tap it in, kudos to the team. I can't think of any football fan that wouldn't have a guy who just stands there and is able to get like 25, 30 goals a season from tapping it in. That's the whole point of football. You work it to the box so that your striker's in there to score. I don't know, maybe, do you want Raul Jimenez like 30 yards out only trying overhead kicks from outside the box? No, you want him in the box doing what he does to score. That's why he's there. That's why he's the striker. Yeah, that's kind of an odd one. I mean, I just think he's good at what he does. And actually, in the case of Raul Jimenez, he very rarely taps it in. He's brilliant all-round play. His hold-up play, his link-up play, his work rate is phenomenal. So I think he does more than that. But yeah, if you have a team and you have someone who can just knock the ball in the back of the net, brilliant. That's what most strikers are built on. Players score hundreds of goals doing that. That's what they're for. That's their job. Right, next up, Ash Gaming. Unpopular opinion. Sergio Roberto is the most versatile player ever? I don't know. He has played in 7 positions and can play in all the roles except left back, centre back, and goalkeeper. Actually, as a right back, I'd probably assume he could do maybe a job at left back or centre back, especially at Barcelona. Not so much about physicality, more about ball playing ability. Obviously, no outfielder is going to go in goal and be any good. Shout out to Carl Walker for that game against Atalanta. The most versatile player. Ooh, that's an interesting one because players can be versatile, right? But then is it actually worth having that player over someone who can play the position? Someone like James Milner is versatile. He does a job, but he doesn't necessarily excel in these positions. Like James Milner had a long stint at left back. You'd still have a left back over a makeshift left back. Sergio Roberto is a good right back, is a good central midfielder. I would say Joshua Kimmich is better at both than Sergio Roberto. He's a better right back and he's a better central midfielder. Like when you can play all these positions, yes, you can fill in for these roles. It technically makes you versatile if you need to. If the boss is like, hey, Sergio Roberto, you're going to have to play right wing today or attacking midfield because, you know, Messi and everybody else is injured. he's still got footballing ability to fit into various positions, but if someone, just because they play there, doesn't necessarily mean they're actually very good there or versatile there. It just means they're willing to pitch in for the team. One I can think of is John O'Shea at Man United back in the day. He played like every position in defensive midfield. Was he outstanding? He's got a few Premier League titles, but I think United were good, not just John O'Shea. He filled in, wasn't necessarily a starter. If a player is versatile enough that they can play in a few positions, if they're immediately swapped out the second an actual player who plays in that actual position comes in, that's not really their position. They're just sort of filling in. Like Joshua Kimmich is a really good example. Can hold his own at central midfield and at right back when other players are competing for that position because he is that good in those positions. Just filling in doesn't quite make you that versatile. And lastly but not least, Ian Lower said Messi is overrated for the 2019-20 season. He is not overrated. Messi is the top goal scorer and top assister in La Liga. Well, what else do you want him to do? I mean, he's doing it every season. Is he overrated? Is he as good as his normal Messi? No. But that's a victim of his own success, and he's not quite up to the unbelievable standards that he's normally at, but he's still a million miles ahead from absolutely everybody else in world football. There you have it. That is the end of today's TFW. Thanks so much for all of your opinions. As we say, every Sunday night in the YouTube community tab is where you can leave your questions. And if you haven't made it this far into the video and you're asking people in the comments section, where can I leave my comments for TFW? This is why you should watch the whole video. Anyway, thanks so much. As always, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Smash the like button and click here or here to check out all of the other videos we've got going on Onefootball. But until next time, wash your hands, stay safe, and keep those ridiculous opinions coming in. I'll see you guys next time.